Our movie begins with a Special Forces soldier named Levin waking up in his car, which he seemingly treats as his home. He steps out and opens the gate to his worksite. We learn that Levin is a foreman at a construction company, and it is clear his crew deeply respects and admires him so much so that one worker even brings him a homemade meal prepared by his wife specifically for Levin. Levin thanks him, then speaks with the workers, constantly encouraging them. He informs them that they have a heavy workload today and must finish it on schedule. He promises that if they manage to do so, he will give them a bonus. He then leaves them to their work and heads into the office to greet Carla and Joe, the owners of the company. With them is their daughter, Jenny, who handles the accounting. From their conversation, it is obvious they consider Levin a part of the family. At that moment, Jenny asks Joe for his credit card so she can cover her expenses, as she is going out with her friends that night. Levin smiles as Joe tells Jenny he would rather she didn't go out and spend a lot of money. However, faced with her persistence, Joe ultimately gives in and hands her the card. Just then, Levin notices a car pulling up to the site. A group of men gets out, and it is immediately apparent they are a gang. They begin beating the worker who had brought Levin breakfast. Levin tries to speak to them calmly, urging them to leave the worker alone and walk away. But one of the thugs insults him and tells him to stay out of it. This enrages Levin, who throws a handful of nails at them before beating them down with extreme, overwhelming violence. The worker is horrified by what Levin just did, but Levin calmly reassures him before walking away to resume his work. Shortly after, Jenny approaches Levin. Having clearly witnessed the fight, she asks if he used to be in the military, noting that his combat moves proved he is a professional. She explains that her grandfather was a former soldier, and she had seen him use those exact same techniques. She asks Levin to teach her a few moves for self-defense, but he brushes the request aside, simply asking her not to mention the incident to her parents. Jenny agrees. She then hands him some food, explaining that her grandmother made it specifically for him since she knows Levin lives alone without anyone to cook for him. Levin accepts the food and asks Jenny to thank her grandmother. After his shift ends, Levin goes to visit his daughter, Mary. He is taken aback to find her grandfather, Jordan, throwing a party on the exact day Levin is supposed to pick her up, a deliberate tactic to make Mary not want to leave with him. The plan fails, however. Mary excitedly runs to hug Levin and heads straight for his car. Jordan then steps outside and speaks to Levin in a hostile manner. He states bluntly that he does not feel safe when his granddaughter is with Levin, calling him a troublemaker who is constantly followed by problems. Jordan cruelly adds that Levin's wife paid the ultimate price and died because of the chaos and violence that fill his life. Jordan deliberately tries to provoke Levin into throwing a punch, hoping to use the assault in court to strip him of custody. But Levin keeps his composure, tells Jordan that he is not to blame for his wife's death, and simply walks away. Levin then takes Mary out for lunch at a restaurant, where he gives her a gift, a photograph of her and her mother. Mary confides that she is angry with her mother for dying and abandoning them, and she reveals that her grandfather has hidden away all the other photos of her mother. Levin is visibly heartbroken by the memory of his late wife. Later, Levin visits his lawyer's office to report Jordan's antagonistic behavior. The lawyer warns him that Jordan has a massive legal team doing everything in their power to win full custody of Mary. The lawyer expresses surprise at the sheer intensity of Jordan's hatred for Levin. Levin explains that Jordan blames him for his wife's death. He reveals that his wife fell into a severe depression because his military deployments constantly kept him away, ultimately leading her to take her own life. The lawyer advises Levin to speak with Jordan and try to reconcile. He warns that Jordan is highly likely to win the case, especially since Levin does not have a permanent residence, a major strike against him in court. Furious, Levin refuses to make peace with Jordan. He hands the lawyer cash to keep fighting the case and vows to find a solution to his housing situation as soon as possible. That evening, Jenny goes out with her friends to hang out at a local bar. She approaches the bartender, David, and asks if he can get a table for her group. David promises to give her a VIP table if she tells him her name. Jenny introduces herself, gets the table's location, and returns to her friends. Immediately afterward, David secretly texts a man named Viper, who works for a human trafficking syndicate. As soon as Viper receives the message, he and his partner, RT, hurry to the bar. Meanwhile, one of Jenny's friends becomes sick from drinking too much. Jenny escorts her to the restroom, promising to wait right outside the door until she is finished. But the moment Jenny steps back into the hallway, Viper ambushes her, covers her mouth, and drags her away. The next morning, Carla and Joe frantically meet with Levin, telling him that Jenny has been missing since the previous night. Her friends reported that she vanished without a trace near the bar's restroom. Joe begs Levin to help them search for her, knowing his background as a former soldier gives him the exact skills needed for this kind of situation. Levin replies that he left that life behind a long time ago, fearing that any involvement in violence will cause him to lose custody of his daughter. Desperate, Joe offers him a massive sum of money to find her, but Levin refuses the cash and walks away. Following this, Levin visits his friend Johnny, who lives in a secluded cabin in the woods. Through their conversation, it is revealed that Levin once saved Johnny's life during a joint military mission, though Johnny tragically lost his sight in the process. Because of this, Johnny feels he owes Levin a great debt. Levin tells Johnny about Jenny's disappearance. It is obvious Levin desperately wants to rescue her. He cares for her like a daughter and had previously promised to always be there for her, but he is deeply conflicted. Terrified of losing Mary, Johnny strongly encourages him to save Jenny, regardless of the consequences. Taking his friend's advice, Levin returns to Joe, who is sitting in despair, watching a video of Jenny playing the piano. Joe tearfully tells Levin that Jenny had actually received a music scholarship, but she turned it down just to help him run the family business. Levin comforts him, giving his word that he will track down his daughter and won't come back without her. Levin immediately gets in his car and starts retracing Jenny's steps from the night she vanished, eventually arriving at the bar. Inside, he spots David discreetly selling drugs to patrons. Levin instantly deduces that David must be connected to her disappearance. Stepping out the back door into the alley, Levin notices that the security camera wires have been cut. Searching the ground, he finds a bead from Jenny's necklace, confirming she was taken by force and had fought back. Late that night, David closes the bar and drives off. Levin, having planted a tracker on David's car, tails him closely. Once David is home, Levin effortlessly picks the lock and slips inside unnoticed. David is shocked when Levin suddenly confronts him at gunpoint, swiftly disarming David before he can reach for his own weapon. Levin shows him a photo of Jenny and demands to know who took her. David plays dumb, insisting he doesn't know anything and claiming he already told the police everything he saw. Knowing David is lying, Levin drags him into the bathroom, forces him into the bathtub, covers his face with a towel, and waterboards him. Gasping for air, David finally breaks. He warns Levin that the kidnappers are incredibly dangerous and advises him to drop the search, threatening that if the gang finds out about him, they will slaughter his entire family. Levin ignores the threat and orders David to give him a name. At that precise moment, two of David's criminal associates arrive at the house and call out to him. Hearing them, David screams for help. David grabs Levin, using him as leverage to move out of the bathroom, but the two armed men open fire without hesitation, accidentally gunning David down. Levin immediately returns fire, eliminating both of them. He loots their cash and, upon examining the tattoos on their bodies, identifies them as members of the Russian Mafia. Levin stakes out a spot near David's house until the next morning. He eventually watches two men step out of a car alongside their boss, a man named Volo. Levin observes them entering the house. Inside, Volo is furious to find his enforcers dead. Discovering the missing cash, Volo assumes this was a targeted robbery. He orders his men, Danny and Vanko, to track down the culprit immediately. Shortly after, Levin spots a fake cleaning company van pull up. Two women get out, dispatched to dispose of the bodies and scrub the crime scene. Volo, Danny, and Vanko quickly exit and drive away. Levin trails them closely until they arrive at Volo's lavish mansion. Parking a safe distance away, Levin grabs his tactical gear, slips into the tree line, and begins surveying Volo's property. From his vantage point, he watches Volo brutally strike his wife. Once the woman leaves the room, Levin breaches the house. The moment he confronts Volo, he throws scalding coffee in his face and knocks him unconscious. Volo wakes up to find himself bound to a chair, suspended by a rope directly over his indoor swimming pool. Levin rips the duct tape off Volo's mouth and asks if he knows who he is. Levin then answers his own question, telling Volo he knows exactly who he is and that he works for the Russian Mafia. Volo snarls that Levin made a fatal mistake killing his men and stealing his cash, swearing that Levin has just condemned himself and his entire family to death. Unfazed and completely fearless, Levin punches Volo squarely in the face, coldly stating that the strike was payback for hitting his wife. He then throws the stolen money right in Volo's face, making it clear he doesn't care about the cash. Levin holds up a photo of Jenny and demands that the girl be returned to her family. He explains she was abducted from the very bar where Volo's men deal their drugs. Enraged, Volo starts screaming in Russian, repeatedly dropping the name Dimi. Levin claims he doesn't understand a word of Russian and offers Volo a simple deal: hand over Jenny, and he gets to live. Instead, Volo spits insults at him. Done talking, Levin slashes the rope, sending Volo plunging into the pool to drown. Stepping outside, Levin pulls out his phone. It turns out he had been recording Volo's rant all along and uses a translation app to decipher the Russian. The translation confirms that Dimi is the one orchestrating Jenny's disappearance. Some time later, the Syndicate's cleaners arrive at the mansion to retrieve Volo's body and sanitize the crime scene. Simultaneously, Volo's brother, Simon, arrives. It is revealed that Danny and Vanko are actually Simon's sons, and they offer him their condolences over his brother's murder. Simon walks through the house, deeply mourning his brother. He then reviews the security footage, clearly watching Levin interrogate and kill Volo. Simon is astounded by Levin's sheer audacity and is desperate to uncover his motive. Seeking personal vengeance, Simon orders his sons to capture Levin and bring him back alive. Meanwhile, we cut to where Jenny is being held captive. A disguised RT enters the room, bringing food and fresh clothes. She draws her gun and aims it directly at Jenny. RT orders her to eat and change into the new clothes immediately, threatening to shoot her if she disobeys. Simultaneously, Levin contacts an old army buddy who now works in narcotics control to gather intel on Dimi. His friend gives him the address of a nightclub that Dimi owns and uses as a front for his drug distribution. Wasting no time, Levin heads to the club that very night. RT, monitoring the club's security cameras, spots Levin, noticing the outline of a weapon in his pocket. She immediately grows suspicious. She radios her associate, Chetty, and sends him to figure out what Levin wants. The moment Chetty sits down next to him, Levin slaps a thick stack of cash on the table. Assuming Levin is a high-rolling beer, Chetty escorts him to the back to meet the local gang leader, Dutch. Via earpiece, RT warns Dutch that Levin is armed and suggests he might be an undercover cop. Dutch confronts Levin, asking why he is taking heat. Levin coolly explains that he carries a gun to protect his cash from thieves. Unconvinced, Dutch orders Levin to empty his pockets to prove he doesn't have a wire or a badge. Levin flatly refuses and turns to walk away, prompting Dutch to order his men to attack. Levin effortlessly tears through Dutch's crew in a brutal melee. Not a single thug can stand toe-to-toe with him. Just as Levin restrains one of the men and prepares to snap his neck, Dutch shouts for everyone to stand down. He approaches Levin, noting that his lethal skills far surpass standard police training, and accurately guesses he has a military background. Levin plays along, claiming he is an ex-soldier turned drug trafficker with a massive client base in Chicago. He explains he needs a new, large-scale supply because his previous connection was busted. Promising to buy massive quantities every month, Levin is tested by Dutch, who quotes him an inflated price. Levin instantly fires back that the figure is way above the going rate in Chicago. Satisfied that Levin knows his stuff, Dutch buys the cover story. He sets up a meeting at a local cafe for the next day to deliver a sample. The following day, Levin arrives at the cafe as scheduled. He meets RT and Chetty and hands over the cash. In exchange, they hand him a burner phone, telling him he will receive a call shortly with the drop location. Levin pockets the phone, firmly warns them not to double-cross him, and walks out. Once in his car, the burner rings. It's Dutch, informing him that the drugs are taped right under his car seat. Dutch explains the secrecy as a necessary precaution to ensure Levin wasn't being tailed. He then promises to call the next day to coordinate the logistics for the bulk order. Levin hangs up, retrieves the drugs, and casually tosses them straight into the river. That night, Viper and RT deliver Jenny to the wealthy client who purchased her, a man named Garrett. When asked why he specifically requested this girl, Garrett explains that her photo reminded him of a painting he is obsessed with. He pays them with a briefcase packed with cash and gold. Garrett dismisses them and goes into the next room to unzip the duffel bag holding Jenny. The moment he leans in, Jenny attacks, viciously slicing his face. Bleeding and enraged, Garrett storms back out, screaming at Viper and RT to get her out of his house and execute her. Meanwhile, Levin is operating out of a sparse, remote apartment, pinning all his gathered intelligence and photos to a makeshift evidence board on the wall. His burner rings, Dutch gives him the time and location to meet the head of the Syndicate to finalize the massive drug deal. The following day, Levin arrives at the designated spot, a highly exclusive, luxurious restaurant. He immediately notes that the entire venue is locked down by heavily armed guards. He is thoroughly patted down before being escorted to the boss's table. To his surprise, the head of the Syndicate is none other than Demi, the exact man he has been hunting. Before they even begin talking, Levin pulls out the buy money and hands it directly to Dutch. Demi demands to see Levin's ID. Levin calmly hands over a sophisticated fake ID, a remnant from his covert military days. One of Demi's specialists runs a check on it. The forgery is so flawless that the man returns and confirms to Demi that the ID is completely legitimate. Satisfied, Demi formally welcomes Levin, slides over the massive bag of drugs, and expresses his excitement for a long and profitable partnership. Leaving the restaurant, Levin immediately heads to a bathroom to flush this entire batch of drugs as well. Back at his apartment, he obsessively studies photos of Jenny and her friends at the bar. Looking closely, he spots Viper lingering in the background of the photos, his eyes locked intensely on Jenny. Cross-referencing this with the contacts he pulled from David's phone, Levin confirms David had been texting Viper, identifying Viper as the kidnapper. He also realizes that Viper operates out of the exact same nightclub controlled by Dutch. Levin returns to the club and parks outside, staking it out as he waits for Viper to show up. Inside, RT spots Levin's car on the external security feeds. Because RT had already been tipped off that Danny and Vanko were hunting for Levin, she immediately calls a brothers and reports his exact location outside the club. Danny and Vanko arrive rapidly. The second Levin spots their vehicle, he abandons his car, hotwires a motorcycle parked outside, and speeds off. The brothers give chase in their car, unleashing a hail of bullets at him through the streets. Levin violently weaves through traffic to lose them, but suddenly collides hard with a police cruiser and goes flying onto the pavement. Dazed, Levin expects to be arrested, but is horrified to see the corrupt officers casually accept a bribe from Danny and Vanko, handing him directly over to the mobsters. The brothers bind him and throw him into the back of their car. As they drive, they tauntingly reveal that Volo, the man Levin drowned, was their uncle. Unintimidated, Levin insults them and mocks their cheap suits. Enraged, they reach into the back to beat him. Even with his hands tied, Levin fights back with devastating force. Danny pulls his gun to shoot Levin, but Levin catches his wrist and violently yanks it forward. The gun goes off, blowing the driver's head clean off. The driverless car violently flips over multiple times. Despite the crash, Levin manages to overpower and kill both Danny and Vanko inside the wreckage. He frees himself from his bindings, crawls out, and shoves the wrecked car into the adjacent river to hide the bodies. When Simon inevitably discovers that both his sons are dead, he is consumed by grief and immediately summons a council with the other Mafia bosses. Meanwhile, Viper and RT are meeting with Demi, who is furious that Jenny scarred their most lucrative client, Garrett. Viper assures Demi the mistake won't happen again. He promises that he and RT will take the girl out into the woods and execute her, after which they will procure a replacement for Garrett. Look, about 85% of viewers right now are basically movie ghosts. You enjoy this story, but you haven't officially committed to it. Let's make a quick deal. I'll save you 2 hours of movie watching, and you hit the subscribe button on Cinema Swift so we can do it again next week. Isn't that fair? Let's get back to the story.